Before we get into this video, I want to say a very special message. We have our first sponsor. Well, it's not really a sponsor because it's kind of me, but I've been working on this clothing line slash business for quite a while now, and I've actually started to get it running. I have the website up, I have everything up. The website is right here, shopkenshi.com. Kenshi, by the way, means swordsman in Japanese. But yes, this is the brand. If you ever want some anime or manga clothing, mostly Berserk designs, because you know I'm heavily biased towards Berserk. Give Kenshi a shot, I think you'll like it. I really like some of the designs I made. By the way, I made all these designs myself. Shopkenshi.com, keep it in mind, bookmark the tab. It's going to be so much fun. And I can't wait to see where this business goes. Yes, the big 3 Shounen video, the video that probably cured my depression and that cured this channel's incredibly slow progress. I'm very grateful for that video. It's probably my biggest video ever, probably my best video ever, and it's probably the video that I can leech off the most, and by that I mean I can derive more video ideas from that video and make different variations of the big 3. You might see this concept appearing a lot on my channel from now on because I kind of have a lot of topics to discuss with the number 3 in it. But yes, based on this title, we're talking about antagonists again, and I'm pretty sure I just made a video on antagonists, but this is going to be a different one. Not only is this only going to be based on shonen antagonists, but it has the title Big 3, which is a subjective title all around it. Now again, I'm calling it the Big 3 because in my opinion, these are probably the most popular as well as best villains in the shonen genre. Best is extremely difficult to say because there are many shonen series I have not seen. I will show some on the screen right now of shonen series that I have not seen. It's gonna trigger a lot of people because I already know there are a bunch of characters you all want on these lists, and I must say I can't really do them. But besides being some of the best villains in the story, I also wanted to point out that they are villains that represent the shonen villain personality the best. So take a character, for example, like Reiner from Attack on Titan, who plays the antagonist role for a good portion of the story. He is nothing like the typical shonen antagonist. He's extremely different in that way, so I can't really include him on this list, even if I do end up thinking he's a better antagonist than someone like Madara, who's on this list by the thumbnail. So if you don't see antagonists from Gintama, Jojo's, and all these other series, then whatever, bro, that's just you who can't tolerate it. I'm talking about these 3 characters because they're, in my opinion, the big 3 antagonists of shonen, or the big 3 villains of shonen, as the title may suggest, because these are in fact villains, not just antagonists, but villainous antagonists. That is quite specific. I guess this is a part 2 to the greatest antagonists in anime and manga video, but this is a little bit more spicy as I'm going to be throwing in my own opinion here and there, and I hope you don't kill me for it. So first is Aizen. Aizen is probably the biggest menace in anime history. He's done some of the most menacing things. He has probably the strongest and most overpowered ability in shonen. He has probably manipulated more of his story than any other antagonist in the same genre as him, and he also has probably the coolest character design of all villains. Though that's kind of hard to say because there are a lot of cool ass villains. Aizen's a character that doesn't start off as the antagonist of the story. He sort of starts off as a side character. He's just a random captain in the Gotei 13. He's just chilling. He's got his glasses on. He looks pretty innocent. He's also kind of suspicious. Like if you look at him very closely, he does some very suspicious things. And then he fakes his own death. And we're like, hold up. This man just died out of nowhere randomly. Okay, I guess that's cool. He's kind of irrelevant. We'll just move on real quick. And then the tension begins to rise. And we really begin to think, okay, this character is extremely suspicious. Why did he just say these things and then go kill himself? And then we get to the climax of the Soul Society arc and all hell breaks loose. This character cements himself as one of the biggest menaces in all of anime and manga, one of the biggest villains in all of anime and manga, and gives us one of the biggest twists. I don't want to say in anime and manga again because I said that way too many times repetitively. He has some of the coolest quotes as well. When you got a cool ass, menacing ass, Black Force energy type character, then he's gonna have some crazy quotes, and Aizen is exactly like that. Adoration is the state furthest from understanding. He pushes the narrative so much as a character because of how he manipulates Ichigo and how he pushes him to move forward into the story and towards the ending of his character, and he pretty much reveals towards the end that he was the one who was responsible for everything. Hence when I explain his manipulative strategies in the story, and especially for the main character Ichigo. This man knew everything Ichigo went through from an infant to now, and he still loses. But that's pretty conventional for shonen antagonists, so I'll kind of give him that pass. Next is Meruem, and I don't think I've ever talked about Meruem on this channel, and that is honestly a shame, because I think there's a lot to talk about with this character, and I do regard him as one of the best antagonists in anime and manga in general. He is really different, I must say. And Meruem is obviously an example of a shonen antagonist who is kind of in a seinen story. And Hunter x Hunter does start off as quite a shonen type story, but it does develop much darker elements later on in the story. Regardless though, Meruem is a shonen villain, which is why he makes it into this video, alongside his incredible character writing and development. In my opinion, from the way he comes into the story to the way he goes out, everything is completely flawless. I don't really see a flaw in his character. I don't even see a sentence that he says wrong and out of character. I just see everything that Meruem does to be pretty much perfect towards his character and to make the most sense as to where the story is going and as to where his character is headed. Being the king of the ants, he starts off as an incredibly monstrous character, and he's one that is regarded as a monster pretty much because of his hostile actions, to say the least, and he's more of a monster than pretty much any other character in Hunter x Hunter. Now that obviously changes quickly, which is why he is such a great villain, and this is where the character of Komugi comes in, and his relationship with this character Komugi couldn't have been any better to me. I really do think this was what made Meruem's character so impactful on an emotional level. It displays a character who shows no regard for humans because he believes he's at the top of the food chain. He believes he is at the top of the kingdom, and that he is the king not only of the ants, but of the entire race of organisms, if you will. He believes he leads all organisms on this planet, and because of that, he has a very big ego straight out of the womb. And he regards humans, which are probably his biggest antithesis in this story, as nothing but weak, emotional, and pathetic creatures. Now, the Kickstarter for his progression and what makes his progression so great is Komugi, and how he witnesses this very weak person, and how he builds a relationship with her very slowly. He sees this weak person, and because of how weak Komugi is, he almost stops himself from immediately killing her as he usually would with other humans. And through their game of, I know it's not chess, but I'm gonna call it chess for the purposes of this video because I don't feel like searching up the name. Through their games of chess, Meruem finds out that he is not in fact at the top of everything. And despite how angry he does get, the fact that he cannot beat Komugi in a single game, he begins to learn that he is not perfect and he is not at the top of the food chain like he really thought he was. He's not the king of everything. And it's so impactful not only to his character but to the person watching or reading the series, that such a weak creature like Komugi could beat such a powerful, omnipotent character like Meruem. And this is what progresses his character. And not to mention, he had one of the coolest fights with Netero, one of the best fights in ever. And I mean, their dynamic was so well written, so well done and executed, and the conclusion of the fight was really good as well. Everything about that fight really elevated Meruem's character, even Netero's character. And obviously the conclusion of Meruem was probably the best part. Really seeing how he goes out and how it was shown in the anime, because I haven't really seen it in the manga. But the way it was displayed in the anime was flawless to me. Again, it completes that relationship with Meruem and Komugi, and that's the way he goes out, in the hands of possibly the weakest creature on the planet, where he is probably the strongest character on the planet. And of course, his progression to becoming more human, whereas Gon's progression is from more of a human to more of a monster. There isn't much more I need to say about Meruem. He is probably Shonen's greatest antagonist. Wow, it's going to be hard to overcome what I just explained there, but now we have another biggest menace in his series, manipulative storyteller, true author of his own story, Madara Uchiha. When you talk about menacing villains, Madara Uchiha is probably who comes to mind first, not only because he's part of one of the most popular series of all time, but because he's Madara Uchiha. I mean, what else needs to be said? This man comes back from the dead, gets resurrected and plans his own resurrection, comes back into the story, defeats an entire army, defeats 5 of the strongest characters in the story at once, as in the 5 strongest characters in the story teamed up to beat him, and they all got destroyed. He beat Might Guy in his 8th gate form, he beat Naruto and Sasuke multiple times, and he dies to Black Zetsu. Yeah, okay. You know what, if you're gonna bring up the ending of Madara's character, that's honestly fair play, because that is probably the biggest problem with his character, and probably the biggest problem with Naruto is a story. But let's not talk about that, because regardless of the way Madara went out, I think he still deserves a spot on this list. And while it may be a bit controversial with the importance of characters like Pain and Obito being debatable for the best antagonist in the series, not to mention Itachi as well, though I don't really see Itachi as a standalone antagonist in the story as much as Madara, Pain, and Obito. And in spite of my, let's just say, unhappiness with certain parts of Naruto's story, I still do think Madara is one of the greatest villains and greatest characters in Shounen anime for sure. And while he doesn't have the craziest character development, I just think the way he presents himself as a villain in the story, similar to what Aizen does, the way he pushes the narrative and the amount of emotional force and impact and his true drive towards his goal really sets him as a very omnipotent and respectable antagonist. You can't help but respect Madara's character and just love the guy because he's not only super cool, his character design's amazing, he's extremely powerful, but everything he does is sort of driven towards a goal, and most of the things he does makes a lot of sense. As an antagonist, the amount of things this guy does in his story is immense. He pretty much drives everything in the story. He's behind everything. I'm gonna ignore Kaguya exists. But for most of the story, it's almost like Madara is behind everything. Madara is behind other antagonists like Pain and Obito, which is kind of why I don't want to put them ahead of Madara, because he is like the big bad boss. Again, ignoring Kaguya, because man, Kaguya. And yes, obviously the ending of his character was flawed, very flawed, but we'll get over that, and we'll still regard Madara Uchiha as one of the coolest and best antagonists in shonen anime and manga. Those are the big three antagonists in shonen. Let me know your thoughts on the video. Let me know your thoughts on the picks. I know some of you are going to disagree with it, it's only natural, but hey, YouTube disabled the dislike button so I can say whatever I want.